Hey everyone, I'm Clive,
Hey, Louis here.
This is Akush.
and today we're going to try to cover the complete BIM management workflow using Plannerly in the space of hopefully less than 30 minutes. Let's see how we get on. The situation that we're covering is that BIM managers must do a lot, and in the poll we can see that it's across the board. Everything from defining BIM standards, managing the BIM execution plan, templates, models, clash detection, even virtual reality. And the principle is, in order to be able to do all of those things, we must plan, we must scope, we must procure, receive, check, and also close out many types of BIM. And that's a similar process for lots of different disciplines. And there are many, many different tools. This is not an exhaustive list, but there are so many different tools that are used for BIM. Some of them have been created dedicated for BIM, and some of them have been created or used from a historical perspective for business and project management in general. And so we have this BIM management workflow that generally is kicked off from whether it's an EIR or a BIM execution plan, depending on what type of project and where you are. But that process can seem and can feel convoluted and difficult, especially when you're creating a word processing document for a BIM execution plan, maybe a scope in an Excel file, maybe PDFing some of those and sending them on emails, storing them in lots of different places, having lots of different tools for project management and storage of files as they go through that process, define exactly what you need from a contract perspective, and then getting it in the contract is a really difficult and challenging thing for every single one of those contracts. And then there's a whole plethora of BIM tools that are used to create and manage models. So it can be difficult. And today we're going to talk about, and it's all going to be demonstration, but today is all about how we take the best parts of those tools, not all of them, but a lot of those tools, and help us to plan early to make sure that we get the right scope and contracted and be able to verify that throughout the workflow. Louis, you're going to be the plumber in this example.
Yep.
Akush will be the architect. And without further ado, let's take you through a demonstration. So Plannerly is in a web browser. We are going to go into a project that has had minimal setup, but just we've defined the teams and the team members so we didn't have to add those while you're on. And the first part of the project that we're going to work on is documenting and understanding essentially what goes into the BIM execution plan as an example. So if I go to the plan module, and if I was to simply look for some of the templates, the BIM execution plan is one of those templates out of the box. If we wanted to be selective about which pieces of that template we would want to use, we could simply click and then deselect certain parts potentially, and also investigate what's in each of these sections. So in the project information section, the first section, we can also see that we are using smart fields to automatically complete this data based on information that is in the project already. In this example, we're just going to say, let's include a BIM execution plan and hit create. And if I open this first section, I can see that a lot of that data is already completed, like the project title is completed from the database from the project title. And a lot of the other parts of the data is so added automatically. I'm going to start to share this. Yeah, Louis, go for it.
You could, so I just wanted to mention, you can set these and customize these in your template so that you're not just in one document, multiple documents. And that way it's you quicker from a template to a shareable, ready document much more quickly. You don't have to find and replace the project specific data. You kind of set these points all over the document and then manage it in one database.
Yep, absolutely. And if Akush, you would maybe jump in there and start to complete some of these. So I'll take my hands off the wheel. I can see, yep, so you've added a date and then a project description maybe. This is going to be an awesome project. You're right.
Yeah, it also helps guide those who are collaborating. So in this case, Akash already knew where exactly to put his information. So it gave him a placeholder to go and look for that kind of content or replace that kind of content in the document.
Absolutely. Yep. And okay, yeah, so as we were describing there is these bite-sized approval pieces, and really they are units of thought that can be reused throughout the project. And if we have also other units of thought that maybe we have from a library, These can then also be accessed and added just by simply viewing them and dragging and dropping them into our project. And by doing that, we can also embed them at certain hierarchy levels and change the order of these. I can also embed them and drop them underneath. As we go through this process, this bite-sized approval process, I can then say what is published and authorized for use and what is just shared so that teams can understand those and be only using the parts of the document that are ready.
Yeah, teams really like the flexibility of dragging and dropping their own content. So if you are working with other team members, you can mix and match a process, replace a process or a certain section in a document that may have been improved in another project, and you want to bring that piece in. So it just makes it very interchangeable, flexible, a lot easier to keep on improving your document as you go through a project.
Yep. And if you already have content, maybe if I create a new document here, if you already have content potentially in a Word document, if I was to grab one of those, so I'm just simply dragging a Word document in, the structured data from that becomes content inside of your project that you can then start to work with. And in this example, maybe the date can be replaced by the date from a smart field, and that will now be from the database populated every time you use that in your project.
Yeah. You only have to do that once too. So creating this in here or importing that one time and it structures it, this is now a template. So every project you create is essentially a template, whether you name it a template or it's a project specific name, but you can always go back to this specific project and bring in that new one on a new project.
And as we're creating and managing multiple documents in the same place, potentially you want to have security over who sees those documents. In this example, we've got the BIM execution plan that I'd like everyone to see, but this project manager contract, I actually don't want anybody else to see, just me as the BIM manager. So I can manage the authority over these contracts or these documents, and I'm just going to simply say only myself as the BIM manager should have access to this. Now we've got permissions over this document and only my team will have access.
Yeah, the permissions are huge because you can add meeting minutes that could just be internal for just you or your team, training documents that could be just internal or something that you're using across other teams as well. So the permissions give you a lot of flexibility on adding all the documents in one place.
And a BIM manager doesn't just have to deal with documents, but we talked about a structured database of fields in documents, but there's also a lot of tasks that the BIM manager would need to manage as well. So we're going to switch from the documents into the scope for task and understanding the requirements for tasks. These tasks could be in folders and in groups and manually set up for either model elements or any part of that project. We could also import a CSV file to start a scope. But if we've already created one before, we can use templates, again, like the templates in the plan. And that template could be created based on types of activities, or it could be based on types of tasks, whether they are modeling tasks or coordination tasks or any type of task, or even deliverables as well, what types of deliverables the teams would be using. And if you've done this before, you might have a template. So clicking on the library drop down at the top, I can select a template. If we've got model uses or BIM uses in a template, I can simply click to select that. And importing just the content that you would want to see, I'm going to import the 3D coordination milestone and the handover milestone, along with all of the teams and responsibilities and the checklist items, etc. And because we're focused today on the plumbing contract, from the responsibility matrix, I'm going to simply drag and drop the folder of requirements into our project. On the right-hand side, we have created milestones. So purpose, this relates to the level of information need, of being able to understand why you need certain things. And then if I was to open to expand just the folders, you would see 2 line items of the groups that we've created, expand those groups to see the elements that we've created, and expanding the elements, we can see the information requirements. So even down to the details of when we need the warranty. And I believe this second milestone is for the handover model that we just brought in.
The list Clive created is brought in by discipline. So it's organized by discipline, but in the templates that are available, there are worldwide classifications. However, this is flexible enough to accommodate most classifications. So if you have your own in your own region, or you're looking to customize something according to your company, you can definitely do that in here. And you can even add specific codes to these classifications as well to help you organize your scope list.
Yep, absolutely. I've worked on a couple of projects before on the plumbing scope, but I know that I'm going to call on Louis and Akosh for their expert advice. I think that previously I've needed to have some sanitary drainage, maybe some piping. So there's some content that I can add just simply by dragging and dropping into the project and drop it into that folder. And I am proposing certain parts of this project. Like, for example, here I'm going to say that I propose everything that came from our project as a template, but I'm also going to look at adding some sanitary piping to this 3D coordination scope for the plumbing team. I don't want to add everything. I'm going to use the quicker sign on the right-hand side to make this a lot quicker. The scope is a coordinated model, so I'm going to choose the detailed geometry with a reliability that is a coordinated level, a team of a plumbing team, because that's the team that needs to do it. And the status I'm going to say is proposed. And by clicking in the cells that I would like to get some kind of feedback on, I'm going to say that maybe these four, the vents, the branches, the mains, and the risers. And then I'm going to close out of this.
Teams usually do this on Excel. And for every piece of information, you've got to create an element, a new column or a new row. And what Clive just previewed was, this is an Excel matrix kind of on steroids. With one click, he was able to assign the level of geometry, reliability, assign a team member to a specific task, and also a status, whether it's proposing it for an approval process. You can see how much more quickly and visual and clearly you can see a scope matrix being built with your teams.
Yep, I can see Akosh has just made a comment on something that I added. We don't usually model these. Okay, I'll remove. So being able to do this and identify certain parts, I can see now that there are certain parts that have been approved. That's what Akosh was doing, and he mentioned on here that they don't usually do that, so I'm going to remove that item. As we go through this, we're hoping that the set of scope is going to be approved so that everyone can then go through and actually carry out this work. But one of the other crucial things is that we need to know when these tasks are going to be carried out, because that impacts everyone on the project. If you've got a coordination milestone, you need to know when you're going to receive certain deliverables so that you can coordinate with others. First of all, I'm going to look at maybe filtering for just certain tasks and show you how that filter works across the different views, probably just for that milestone. And I could even filter for a specific team member's tasks or a specific team's tasks or a date range if I wanted to. Now I've got these 3 tasks for this one milestone, and I know that Louis is the plumbing contractor, but we can get super specific, even down to the team member that will be carrying out these tasks. So it's the plumbing team, and I have assigned this task and these other 2 tasks to Louis so that he now is responsible for those 3 tasks. I want to see when he's likely to do them. So I'm going to flip from the grid view in the scope to the timeline view, and I'll see those 3 tasks that are assigned to Louis. They are yet to be scheduled. They don't have a date defined or a duration defined. And I'm simply going to say, hey, Louis, can you jump in here and start to work on this? So if I take my hands off the wheel, would you be able to maybe, yeah, okay, perfect. So this is a live view of the timeline. Everything that people are doing is updated in my view so that you can see what's happening without it just looking like complete magic. If I hover over a task, you can see the nodes that I can grab from so that I can start to, if I click and drag, I can start to create dependencies, and those dependencies will update the tasks and will create us a critical path. And by updating these tasks, we are simply showing you how easy it is to make those updates and make those changes. So everything that I'm doing, everything that Louis is doing is all being updated automatically.
Yeah, one of the key takeaways here is the list you created in your scope grid was also the same list in your timeline. So it's not copying and pasting or exporting a list to take to another platform and scheduling, you're essentially are starting your start and end dates on the same specific tasks as your scope contract or your scope grid. So, efficiency is what we've been working on to improve for you and your team to go always be looking at the same content, same list, essentially being literally on the same page.
Yep, absolutely. So now that we have our scope that has been approved, and we've got the timeline of tasks of when we're going to carry out these tasks, and even, I should have mentioned as well, milestones that potentially could be constrained by a specific requirement. So the constraint type might be that it must finish on a specific date. And that date is now going to mean that if I was to change something upstream, we can see the impact and potentially see how that might restrict us from making a change in the future. We're going to now switch from the scoping to how do we tie people into this contract. And if I was to jump into the export menu to create a contract, it sometimes can take a lot of time. So let's see how long, once we've got this set up, how long it's going to take us. Maybe we would like to have some details about a team. And in this example, it's just going to be a plumbing contract, but I want to provide my contact details as the BIM manager, but not everyone else's at this point. And I would like to use the BIM execution plan, but I don't want to include the other details, but I also only want to include what's shared and what's published as a part of that document. And then on the scope side of things, I'd like a grid and also a timeline of the tasks. And again, I only want to show them the content for the plumbing engineer. And I would only like to say what is approved for that contract. And potentially, I only want to share the 3D coordination milestone. And I might only want them to be the ones to be able to access this output. So I can put a restriction on the output as well. Call this a plumbing contract and hit create. And now that version 1 of the plumbing contract is being created. And if I open that, we'll see the nicely created cover page with the details and even the location, contact details of just those 2 teams that we filtered out. The details that we added, all the smart fields that have been completed automatically for us, a nice table, a grid of everything that was required, and then also the tasks in a timeline as well. So we can see those tasks in a timeline. And that's all good, but maybe things have changed. So let me close that and we might keep on working on the output or on the scope on the planning documents and propose and approve more. And every time that updates, we could say create a new version, and this will create us a new version of that document instantaneously. However, maybe we want to also automate that so that everyone in the team is updated without me having to do that every single time. And in the auto versioning, we can now set up potentially a weekly basis. Every Wednesday at a certain time, I'm going to now say, I would like this to be sent to Akosh and Louis with a bit of a detailed report. And when I say save, it's now going to recur so that everything is going to be updated. And everyone's going to be kept informed about everything that's changing. However, what's really important is that Louis is truly on the hook for what we agree to. And putting it into a PDF is one thing, but we have the ability to get his authority or his signature on a contract as well. So if we are able to agree on one of these versions, say version 2 is the one that we would like to contract, we copy it from the exports to the contracts, and you'll see that it has restricted access. It is in draft status. We can have a threaded conversation. We can open it up for others, but I can also hit the required signatories, ask for Louis' signature as he's part of the plumbing team, and hit save. And now Louis will get an email asking him to electronically sign this. And you can see it's pending at the moment, 0 of 1 and in review. This status was automatically updated. So look, okay, I didn't even have to ask. Louis signed this. So it's now signed, 1 of 1 and approved. All of these just updated automatically. And now when I open the contract, I will be able to see Louis' signature. That's actually one of the better things. I'm pretty impressed. That's usually Louis just puts an X, or I think Zach she just put an X in our demos. So now we've got a summary of the signatures, and this is all affixed to the same document with the same teams and all of those requirements that we had. Great. Now we've got them on the hook. How do we get
this workflow? You can see from the very beginning, the filters, the flexibility you have by choosing what type of document, whether it's a grid, the scope grid, or whether it's just for the timeline. All these filters really help you create the document that you're looking for, whether it's an overall project summary that you want to have a signature by every team member, or if it's for specific contracts that you're trying to build by individual team. So whether it's a really large contract or whether it's a small contract by team, you have that flexibility. And in a matter of minutes, you can create any one of these types of contracts without spending time on formatting, hiding columns and rows and making sure that it fits in a PDF. All of that is automated for you. All you got to do is select what you want to show and display, who has access, and who you want to sign in this whole workflow.
Perfect. So once we've procured it, once Louis has signed this and we're ready to go, we're now going to want to start using all of those great authoring tools to create models and then make sure that we're getting what we are looking for. So one of the ways to review how things are going is in the tracking view for the task status. So if I move to the tracking view, you'll see those 3 tasks that we updated as approved. Louis is now going to work on this. That's 100% of the filtered tasks. Now, if Louis is starting to work on some of these tasks, he might drag some around. I'll take my hands off the wheel so you can see that moving. And if I open up the activity feed as well, as things are changing, you can see what he's working on and when he's worked on it and when he's changed the status on these tasks. I can open it. I can see exactly all of the activity of what's happened, threaded conversations, a lot of detail in every single one of these tasks.
Yeah, as a BIM manager, this is awesome. I don't know how many times, I had to pick up the phone and call my team members and ask them, what's the status of this task? Where are we at with these elements and the models? Here, if everyone's keeping up to date on their own tasks, I mean, literally you can filter for your own individual tasks. They can manage their own. It's kind of a board that's updating itself if everyone's doing that. And all I have to do is simply come in here, filter, and look at the percentages. Those percentages adjust based off the filters. So I could really see, again, an overall project status by milestone, by team, or individual team member. So again, it's another powerful tool that I didn't have to copy and paste the list, make sure that they match in another platform. This is taking the task from the actual contract and just taking it through the next step of the workflow, as far as modeling or the approval workflow, whatever piece of the workflow that you're in. And all of these statuses are customizable. So whatever your workflow is, you can customize it to match that.
So now Louis is going to go away and do some real work. But if we move from seeing that, Louis says they're complete, but let's verify. Let's actually have a step in here to understand, did he do what we asked him to do? And you could just drag and drop. So Louis could drag and drop any one of these different file formats into the browser, but we're going to connect to a project that we already have. And this could be on a cloud. So they're here now. This is an Autodesk construction cloud where you might be housing these models as the CDE. And this MEP file might be the project file, in this case, that Louis has that plumbing content in. And
typically the best practice here is, if I have completed this, I would be the one uploading the model or the version. We just wanted Clive to show you how that would be done. But this is where, I am submitting these tasks and submitting this version of this model for 3D coordination.
Yep. And so now this model is submitted, or it's available, and Louis in the background will be seeing the content that he has modeled. And in this example, it's the plumbing fixtures. So if I show you guys, one example, these are the plumbing fixtures. And with one click here, I have now assigned those plumbing fixtures to this card that he said were completed. And I can open this and start to see what the requirements were, And if Louis really has completed this, I'll see him go through this checklist and check off the things as if by magic. There they are. And if I'm happy now that the elements have potentially the right property sets, the right data required, and there's a lot of automation that we're putting in place here, and also for the linking, watch out for that in the coming weeks. But now if I'm happy with this, I can then start to verify these tasks, and they would slide away. Let me just filter this so that we only want the ones that are completed. And then I can start to check these ones off, and they would filter away. I can say, okay, the cold water, he says it's complete. I can open that task, see that these elements are in place. If I'm happy with those, there's a lot of checks that I might have to perform, but as I go through this, I can now spend more time in a quality review rather than trying to filter through and find what they're saying is complete and identify whether they have done what they said they were going to do or not. And then I can say that that's complete. So now if I turn on the status of these tasks, I can see these are all of the things that have been completed, show everything in the model, and difficult to see, but they are this green color to show that they are verified as well. Once we are happy with the whole model content, at that point in time, we can then approve it and share the right version. So this version can then be updated with the status so that everyone on the team can understand that it's ready. But how do we communicate with everyone else that maybe isn't in the platform? Well, a simple way would be to create a status report. And if we do that to close out this project as a PDF, potentially in this one, we might not want a cover page, and we just want the detailed report for the plumbing team. And I would like to see only the verified work and for the coordination milestone, and simply calling this the plumbing report and hitting create. And you can start to see how you can build up these specific for types of scope. And if I open that report, the detailed report, we'll now see all of these tasks and all of the checklist items that we have gone through that Louis has checked off, and it's all reported to understand exactly what has happened. And there's a whole lot more that we can get out of this, but essentially we can report out what the asset information model is going to include as a handover for the owner.
Yeah, being able to look at the tasks and the model in the same view really helps teams do this more efficiently. We kind of have to do this in two different platforms. I could have potentially a different list than Clive that I've submitted for him to review, and then he's looking maybe at a different list of tasks. One of the most beneficial things that I've heard from teams is that they spend time only reviewing the tasks that have been submitted. So imagine a workflow where you have potentially 100 tasks that you need to cover for 3D coordination, but Clive is only focused on the 10 that I've submitted. So he's not wasting any time looking at items or tasks that aren't ready. He's only looking at the ones that were ready. So he was able to use a filter to just get to that point. So when you look at the workflow from the contract, that list taking you through the schedule, and all the way to verifying the task for that individual use, you're looking at many pieces becoming more efficient because you're looking at the same page or same task list throughout the entire workflow.
Absolutely. Yep. And to summarize, I mean, Louis, I think you did a great job there.
Sorry.
No, totally. It means my job will be easier. So a BIM manager must create a lot of documents. Having them in the same place and permissions and having bite-sized pieces is amazingly useful. And being able to then define a scope specifically for the purpose and understand what geometry, documentation, information, everything that's required, without, as Louis said, having a spreadsheet with tens of columns and trying to understand and communicate that. Having lots of pictures makes it a lot easier as well. Being able to understand when things are going to be done so that others can understand when to start and when to finish, not start, stop, waiting for other deliverables. Seeing progress. So in a Kanban board, being able to see, as we did, Louis was dragging those tasks around and see the progress update automatically. And then when those deliverables are shared, they're connected to the tasks, to the original requirements that are part of the contract. so everything can be verified in a connected workflow. How do we get started with all of this? I hear you say. We've got lots of videos. Take a look on the Planoly YouTube channel. I think we'll throw a link into the chat for that. Watch a bunch of episodes that are also recorded on our website and also on the YouTube channel. And a must is enroll in the next webinar series. We will let you know when that is starting. We have some pretty cool, much more detailed demos, and it's leading up to a really big release for us, which we're pretty excited about here, and we'll share more about. There's a lot more automation and a lot more interesting features and some new branding as well. Second thing is to sign up for the Information Manager training and certification course that ranges from basic to professional to expert, which is following the ISO 19650 workflow. And the third one is obviously buy a project. We've made it stupidly cheap, and there are some new plans in place that you can take advantage of today.